Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us during the Lytham Partner Winter 2021 Investor Conference. My name is Robert Breza, Vice President of Lytham Partners. During this fireside chat, we welcome TAAL's Distributed Information System Technology, ticker symbol C on the CSE TAAL and on the OTCQX TAALF. The company's president is Chris Naprawa. Thank you, Chris, for joining us today. Before we begin, for those familiar with Lytham Partners, it's one of the country's leading investor relations firms with more than 2 decades of corporate access experience. We will now dive into questions in a moment, but finally, I want to remind everybody that TAAL is available for one-on-one meetings later this week. If we have not already signed up, please send me an email at Breza, B-R-E-Z-A, @lythampartners.com or visit www.lythampartners.com/virtual and click on the one-on-one meeting request button. With that said, let's begin. Chris, would you please provide an overview and talk a little bit about your background as well and how you came to be president of TAAL? Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me today. And my name is Chris Naprawa. I'm the president of TAAL. My background is, I've had a lot of good luck in being in really interesting sectors at the right times, and in the formation stages of these businesses. This is the 4th time I've been president of a company like this, 3 public and 1 private, all in emerging industries. I was lucky enough to be around when digital wireless was just coming out, and some of your audience may remember and how messy that was at the beginning of digital wireless, but how much it's all impacted our lives. And then again in the internet with digital streaming, I was right in on that. And then the early days of the cannabis market. And now blockchain, I just think is absolutely the next big protocol war. And I think that war is happening right now. And just like the internet, blockchain, we will use it every single day for absolutely everything we do. We might not understand exactly how it works or even care that much, but with the internet now, there's just one protocol that we use, like we're using right now, TCP/IP. It's global standard. It's been around for over 30 years, but that wasn't always the case. It was a fight. And right now there's a fight going on to see who is going to win this protocol war, and we have our bets on Bitcoin SV. That's where we think we're going to be. So that's a little background on me. Oh yeah, I did spend 15 years in investment banking as well. That's a quick sojourn, but the fun parts have always been the entrepreneurial aspects of this business and the public markets.
Well, when you look at Bitcoin and blockchain, it has a lot of news flow, some good, some bad, some authentic, some not. When you look at helping investors really understand and boil it down to a simple analogy, can you help investors really think, these are the basic concepts of blockchain and here's where we're differentiated and where we really thrive? Because the demonstration so far for 2 quarters have been fantastic.
Well, the blockchain is ultimately, Rob, a tool of consensus. It allows 2 parties that don't know each other to trust each other. And that could be 2 people or 2 machines or 2 whatever. And that, the title of the white paper in 2008 was a peer-to-peer digital cash system. Digital cash is a medium of trust, isn't it? We can trust cash even if we don't know the other party. And that peer-to-peer nature, I think, is what's been lost along the way. Why? Because the stakes are really, really high. These intermediaries that we all pay for almost everything we do, our banks, our insurance companies, all kinds of stuff, our credit card companies, they make a lot of money, and the stakes are very, very high. And there's certainly elements out there that don't want to see something like this succeed. And the big difference now compared to back in the 90s when I went through the internet stuff is, for the most part, the establishment just dismissed it. This is dumb. This is silly. Who's going to want to buy a pair of shoes on the internet? That's crazy. Now, I think enterprise and the financial community, they're paying big time attention to this and trying to get it right. So you've got like all these elements going on. You've got established companies that are pouring millions into figuring out how they can enable and use blockchain, all the way to the solo developer in their garage trying to come up with the next application that runs on blockchain. So for a protocol to be really successful, it's got to be really cheap, super scalable, and really, really stable. And that's what I think Bitcoin brings. So you've got this ledger, this tool of consensus that we can use for all kinds of different things, not just finance. And you got to start thinking about it like a computer in the cloud that's programmable, and we can do all kinds of applications in it. And today for TAAL, our application or our transaction revenue is still very, very small. So under 5% of our monthly revenue is right now coming from transaction fees. But that's up from zero. So, that's a good trend. And we think that's the future of the business. And all of that is subsidized by our mining business. At the end of the day, we still need to win blocks to be able to do all the other things that we want to do. All this aspirational components of the business doesn't mean much if we're not winning blocks in the first place. So we're winning blocks and building solid revenues in a very, very profitable way.
What can you touch a little bit on the recurring nature of the revenue now as you've seen it build and the applications start to generate more and more blockchain, bigger, larger blocks? You mentioned the subsidy reward and 5% of the revenue passing or being contributed from the transaction fees. What I think would help investors understand is the margin impact that really has. I think helping people understand that the transaction fee is essentially, I'll let you phrase it, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
So just backing up, just a small history lesson, in 2009, 21 million Bitcoin were minted. And what the inventor said, what Satoshi said was, listen, we're going to reward the miners for building out the infrastructure, for building the network on which we can build all these other applications. So there's something called the block subsidy reward. It started at 50 Bitcoin. We're now down to 6.25 in every single block. There's 6.25 Bitcoin in every single block. There's about 140 blocks, 144 blocks a day on average. And in the spring of 2024, that's going to go down to 3.125. So a halving is going to come. And so what the original vision was is that transaction fees, not just financial transaction fees, but data usage on chain would replace the block subsidy reward. And so what we've started to see this year at TAAL, and certainly on the blockchain since about July, August, is we're starting to see more frequently blocks that have more transaction fees in them than they do block subsidy reward. So we're in excess of that 6.25. And I think the point that you're trying to get at is whether there's no fees in a block or a whole bunch of fees in the block, our cost to mine it is the same. So from a gross margin perspective, that transaction fee revenue is very, very accretive to margins. Okay. And so what TAAL's trying to do is we're trying to build the tools and the services that make it easier for enterprise, make it easier for developers to use the blockchain. And we think that business will be captive with us, so that we will get more and more of that high revenue, high margin business. So most of the miners, not all of them, but a lot of the miners out there, certainly the public miners, have a very simple business plan. We mine Bitcoin and Bitcoin's going higher. So
up until
if the latter is not true, the business doesn't work. Our business will work in different price environments because the transaction fees are independent of the coin price, right? So that's really our business, and the more ways that we can generate fees, the better. And like our largest client right now is a video game company, and it's an amazing video game company. We've got guys in supply chain and healthcare, in casino gaming, in linguistics. Like there's a lot of examples that we can share with you of companies that are working with us now. And like everything at the early stages, not everything's perfect all the time. You got to try things out and you got to learn to work together as teams. But every single day and every single week and every single month, we get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, and closer to that goal of that transactional economy that we think that we can be a significant player in.
That's great. Wanted to dive in a little bit to the recent announcement you made regarding for the lack of a better word, a clean energy company based out of New Brunswick, Canada. Can you walk through the financial highlights and how that fits into your long-term vision?
Yeah, so at the absolute base of that is that TAAL is a growth company, and to grow, we need to grow our infrastructure. Our processing capabilities have to continue to grow. We take a slightly different line on it. We want to have 3, 4, 5 different places where we have infrastructure from a safety standpoint, from a geopolitical standpoint. Like, there's a lot of reasons why we want to spread that out. And it's not about shaving off every last penny, because we want to be able to offer service level agreements to these enterprise customers. And to do that, we think we need redundancy and diversity in our network base. Canada is a great place to operate. First of all, New Brunswick is a wonderful place. New Brunswick Power is the power authority there, and they are a green electrical producer. They use hydro, they use nuclear, so they're about 80% non-emitting. The place that we're in is called Grand Falls. You can imagine there's some hydropower there. So not only that, it's a wonderful place to operate for all of those reasons, but especially because of the people. It's just a lovely, lovely place to be, and it's even for people that have never been there before. When you go, it's like going home. It's people are just so friendly and so nice, and that goes a long way in our books. So this facility itself is 60,000 square feet. We've got about 6,000 square feet of office space there as well. It's right on the grid. So we're pulling power straight off the grid. It's, like I said, 80% non-emitting. At the end of the day, we'll be one of the larger clients in the province. We've got other commercial industrial neighbors. But what this is going to allow us to do is to, for the foreseeable future, mine Bitcoin at a industrial level. So we can put a whole bunch of stuff in there. We don't have neighbors that are going to be complaining about noise or anything like that. It's, we're off to on our own, and we've got dedicated grid power. We have 50 megawatts of power coming into that place. It'll be built out over time, and that gives us room to grow, Rob. So, with everything that we've already announced, with the machines that we've already announced that we've purchased, about 4,000 coming as we speak right now. There'll be more after that, and we're going to fill this data center. So what you'll start to see from TAAL is, at some point in time, we'll be able to speak with a lot of confidence that we'll have another 12 quarters of growth ahead of us, quarter on quarter. And that's really what we want to provide. All things aside, blockchain and the advancement of technology and everything else, investors still want to see growthy, predictable, recurring revenues from technology companies. And that's what we're trying to provide.
That's like sleeping medication for most people. It's perfect because they want to go to bed at night and not worry.
That's right.
So that's exactly what people really want to do. As you look around from a competitive perspective, as it relates just through the BSV ecosystem, do you really see much competition, or where do you see the competition environment generally if it's not within the BSV community?
Yeah, I think our competition is really other blockchains. Yep. And so they're not only getting attention, capital, and also, and very importantly, developer time. So, whether it be Ethereum, Cardano, Polkadot, Solana, kind of you name it, that takes up a lot of mind share and a lot of time to explain why we're better. And as you know, when certain technologies have different kinds of promoters or backers, all of a sudden there's major credibility there, and there's a massive cabal of California money that's backing some of these things. But I just want to say that you pick any single feature that you like from any one of those blockchains, whether it be smart contracts, tokenization, NFTs, you pick the feature that you like about that. Bitcoin SV can do it faster, can do it cheaper, and can do all those things. And it still has all the things you love about BTC. It's only 21 million. It's a proof of work. It's competitive. There'll never be any more. So that's the message we're trying to get across. And TAAL's simple mission is just to try to make it easier. And it's still not easy enough, but we've come a long way.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I wanted to talk a little bit about, recently, there's been some press announcements about overall blockchain and tokenization. Wanted you to talk about tokenization and how you see that, and what is the basic premise of how it's going to drive revenue in the future?
Yeah, so tokenization, we're big proponents of tokenization and tokenization of real world things. And, blockchain is especially well positioned to enable that tokenization. Because if you own something that's digital or virtual, you probably want to know where it is. Bitcoin has the ability that it just lives on chain. It's not living in some third-party server or some Amazon server. Everything bad that you've heard about Bitcoin is like the hacks and all these other things. They don't happen on chain. They happen somewhere else. They happen at a custodian or an exchange or something like that. That's typically where stuff goes wrong. So NFTs, for instance, like if you want to own these things, I want my key to represent something on chain so that it would be there. It's permanent. It's cryptographically secure. But the revenue model for us is quite simple. Like make it really easy to tokenize things and make it really easy to transact, because every time they transact, there's a transaction fee associated with that. And even though our transaction fees, I believe on a trailing basis right now is about, I think 0.7 of a penny per transaction. That would compare to Ethereum, which is I think just north of $30. I've heard some ghastly fees on top of that, like some just enormous ones. BTC it's all over the place, and what the actual transaction fee is by the time you pay your exchange and get front run by your marketplace provider and all that sort of stuff. But these are very, very, very small fees, so that I could send you 5 cents and my transaction fee is half a penny. Like that's something that we can live with. And if it's a token, that's a token of the US dollar or of this place, Brookfield Place here in Toronto, or of your home. That opens you up to be able to, the question was asked last week, and I thought it was a really good question. Like, how does this really actually help regular people? Well, you could take the equity in your home, tokenize that, be part of a larger pool, and all of a sudden have some liquidity alternatives for the asset value of your home, or the paid-in capital of your home, other than the banks, other than traditional lenders. That's one way that this could be real and open that up. So the more of it, the better for guys like us.
Absolutely. When you look at the company, it's extremely well positioned, generating fantastic profitability. In Q3 was fantastic. Based on the operating results, there's really probably no need to raise cash right away. How are you thinking your balance sheet is and where you are structurally? I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Yeah. So depending on any given day, right now we probably have between $10 and $12 million of digital assets. I think that's where we finished off last quarter. We probably have something similar to that right now. We have $23 million in prepaid deposits, and that's for infrastructure, power, and of course, Bitcoin miners. So that's already been paid out, and that's going to come back in the form of revenue to us when we plug all this stuff in. And I don't know if you noticed this morning that we announced a $10 million loan US from a family office. And that's going to help us, buy a few more miners, but also pay for some of the initial capital expenditures at our New Brunswick facility without having to dip into our treasury. So we had debt, a little bit of debt last year, which we paid off. We've got a little bit of debt now. We're experimenting with leverage. And ultimately we will be consumers of capital at some point in time. But right now we're in really, really good shape.
That sounds great. I think when people look at the company now and the results history that you've had, you mentioned having prepaid for a lot of the fees. From a revenue model perspective, it would appear that you're pretty sitting on a solid foundation. You've made the investment strategically. You're looking at 2022 with a pretty robust marketplace in good footing from a company perspective within the industry. What kind of keeps you up at night here then?
Oh, I sleep like a baby, Rob, honestly. But like, listen, the most recent thing that we announced on the mining side was we bought 4,000 of the latest model of Bitmain miners. For every 1,000 miners around these current prices on a monthly basis, that'll make somewhere between $900,000 and $1 million a month US.
Wow.
So if we start receiving those on a monthly basis like we are right now, out until March, you can see that we'll start adding that revenue on each month. Sure. And that'll keep that quarter-on-quarter growth going, certainly for the next 2 quarters, because that just those machines alone will ensure that growth. And by then we should be mining in New Brunswick, and you'll see other stuff from us there. And we do have other sites as well that are continuing to grow. So, I just want to keep the quarter-on-quarter growth going. That's really the goal. We've grown quite a bit as a company from last year. We're now about 75 souls in 10 different countries, and a lot of that, a big part of that, is all people working on stuff for the future. So it's one thing just to mine Bitcoin, and there's a lot of good Bitcoin miners out there. But if you look at the broader NASDAQ community, the NASDAQ 500, it's kind of normal for technology companies to spend somewhere between 25 and 30% of their top line revenue on research development, product development, because that's how you innovate and that's how you stay ahead. And not all that stuff is going to work. Not all of it's going to work, no. But some of it's going to work. And when it does work, it pays massive dividends in the form of extremely high margin products that can get sold very, very quickly. And you and I both been around long enough to see that many, many times over. So, but we're not trying to even get people to understand that right now. It's like, listen, at the base level, like Maslow hierarchy of needs, we mine. On top of that is a whole bunch of other stuff that you're not paying for right now in our shares.
Sure.
So on average, the public miners trade at 4 to 5 times enterprise value to revenue. Sure. So just with our last quarter, you can already see that that's a $60 million run rate. Let's imagine that this is another growthy quarter, so it's an 80 million rate, times 5, divide by 37 million is how many shares we have out. You're going to come up with a number over $10. Sure. Right? So, and here we are trading at $4 Canadian today. So I've got a lot of work to do just to try to communicate that message, that basic message, and all the other stuff you're getting for free at this point in time.
Well, I think that's a great way to kind of summarize it and leave it there. I really do appreciate your time today, and I appreciate all the hard work that you guys are doing at TAAL. Again, just for everybody, Chris, thank you very much. For anyone who out there who is already not signed up, please send me an email at Breza, B-R-E-Z-A, @lythampartners.com, or again, click on www.lythampartners.com/virtual and click on the one-on-one meeting request. With that, thank you very much, Chris, for a wrap.
Thank you very much.